And I thought in the beginning, everything can be solved by the asanas. But where the stress comes from, and the whole idea of critical alignment started to develop by the use of this headstander. Trying to change your coordination patterns is physically almost impossible. But with the use of the props, it is so simple. I want to create independency to my students. They don't need to be dependent on the tools for the rest of their lives.
Alignment is famous for the use of props at the classes. So why are props so essential in the practice?
Well, my kind of teaching is related to breaking the tension which is caused by stress. And everybody carries their marks or their luggage of stress in certain parts of our body. People say, when I have stress, it hurts my lower back. Other people say, when I have stress, it hurts my shoulder or my neck, or I get headaches. So it's very confusing. And I was thinking, because I teach so long with a group of people who come so regular to my classes, and we do such extensive exercises like long headstands, long shoulder stands, and all the types and variations of poses, that I could observe the body very closely. And I thought in the beginning, everything can be solved by the asanas, so the asana system. But then I thought, when I look at stress, is there something like a source in our body where stress starts to deform us, and is it possible to break that pattern through our own coordination? And that was a very important question, because the effects of stress are numerous. They move in any direction of our body. But what is the source? And I came to the conclusion that stress is related to old lines of stress, which already starts to develop in childhood, and it's related to social interactions, our educators. And we all lived, or most of us lived, in circumstances which were fearful and unpleasant, and parents can't fulfill all the needs of little children. So we're all damaged in a certain way, and started to develop certain strategies in our behavior based on fighting, fleeing, and freezing. So I thought, we practice on the mat, but where the stress comes from, and the effect of stress, of course, is awful. It shapes us, and if we don't change it for the rest of our lives, it starts here, in the heart region. Fear starts here, and we either withdraw from our environment. If I grow up in a violent environment, I try to hide myself, so it will change my shape, and I find a strategy in order how to deal with it. And some people build some brainy strategy. They start to build an intellectual world of safety, but other people become fighters and they say, what fear? Come here. And they challenge the world around them, and they have another body shape. But both are affected in this area. The strategy is different. And why did I came to that conclusion? Because in all spines which I examined, the area just below the shoulder blades showed that curve. And it took me a while to understand that the curve was there, not because our hands and eyes are at the front of our body, but because we withdraw or harden towards the people around us, towards space. And I started to work on that. I tried to work on that in my regular classes, but I didn't succeed. The area which is the parallel at the back of my body, just at the bottom of my shoulder blades, is actually the end of my neck. My neck should put the weight of my head in that part of my spine. And I also became a little hesitant because from a medical perspective, that curve in the upper back should be there. The spine should have an S curve. But then I saw the effect of that rounding in people who did their regular headstands. And either they shifted into the neck and strained the neck, or they were able to raise the shoulders and they shifted the arch into the lower back. And I thought, that's it. Either we compress the neck and overstrain the neck and the shoulders, or, and that happens when we sit very often, people carry their tension in this part of the body, and when we stand, we destabilize the lower back. So I felt the urge to change that structure from the rounded S shape to the J spine. And I felt support by those days by looking at my daughter, because she was 3 years old when I started to develop all this, and she was straight. The head and the neck and the spine and the upper back were in one line. And so she encouraged me to continue the research. So I thought, how do I do that? Because when I asked people to put the head on top of the spine, nothing happened. But I'm a fan of inversions, and I like to do headstands. So I thought, when it doesn't move from the head to the spine, when we put people upside down, should it work from the legs and the pelvis in order to mobilize that area and the upper back again? And that question was teasing me all the time. And I couldn't do it in a regular headstand. Even when people were very skilled in that exercise, it didn't work. Either they compressed the neck or they compressed the lower back. So they couldn't get rid of their strain through their own coordination. And that became an important sentence for me. You can't release your strain, that fundament of strain, the source of strain caused by stress, through your own coordination. So I thought, we need help. And I invented, that was my first project, this headstander. You're not standing on your head, but you're standing on your shoulders. And the effects of this little machine, and it didn't look like that, it was an old wooden thing which was awful to stand on. I think you still felt the nails in your shoulders, so nobody liked it. Gave me a lot of opportunities because I was able to mobilize the spine, and the whole idea of critical alignment started to develop by the use of this headstander. And it's amazing what people can do. I just had an assessment in which a girl suffered from back pain for 15 years, and she was depressed by it. I asked her to stand upside down. I mobilized the spine. I felt the movement. She was standing in a position in which she was able to release her tension, and I did it in 20 seconds. And she experienced it in 20 seconds. So this thing is a shortcut to the release of tension, and the knowledge how to appreciate the body in a new way, not in a negative way, but in a positive way. But then at the same time, I thought, I can't ask people to stand on their head, on the headstander for the whole class. So I started to develop this thing, that rubber strap, which was a very clumsy one in the beginning as well. But fortunately, I had a very good friend with a factory who helped me to find the right density and to make a safe headstander. We tested this by putting weights of 200 kg on it, and made the welding and the construction so strong that it's safe for everybody. And that, of course, is the main emphasis in the tools I developed. They're safe. And then the back bender came in order to get rid of the strain underneath the shoulder blades and or between the shoulder blades. And after working on the headstander, one tool started to develop after the other in a really natural way. It's so logic, it's so simple. The only thing you need to think, no, the S spine is not right, it needs to be a J spine.
I see. And can we practice without props?
Well, like I said, trying to change your coordination patterns is physically almost impossible. But with the use of the props, it is so simple. The inversion makes it possible. Laying on a strap, see it as support, not as something terrible, but something which gives support. makes it so easy to change. And once the mobility is increased, and that's the purpose of my teaching, then you can practice. The sequence which I learn to people is break the tension. Lay on a strap, exhale, use gravity, use the pressure, release your musculature tension, then the spine will start to move again. Then the third step is coordination. How can I coordinate the movement without the help of the props? Because I want to create independency to my students. They don't need to be dependent on the tools for the rest of their lives. But it's always good to have them around, because in certain occasions of your life, there's an accumulation of stress, events, bad things will happen, and you can immediately jump on the headstand or lay on the strap, and you know what to do. So I would say with developing posture to the original shape where we came from is almost impossible without the use of the straps. And the figures show actually that I may be right, because we didn't develop in curing lower backs. It's still chronic pain issue number one. And 90% of all diagnoses or 90% of all pain issues in the lower back cannot be diagnosed by medical science. And the same things occur in the neck and upper back region. So I think this can give a new direction also to the medical field in order to reduce that number of 90% and bring it down. Personally, I look at the passage of movement, I look in a very different way to posture and movement. I don't accept any chronic pain issue. So maybe we can come together and start to learn from each other.
I see, and I also think that the market now is getting filled with some variations of the tools which use the same idea or just copies of your original tools, and they also differ in price. So what do you think about that?
Well, when it's a sign that, and that's the positive review to it, that critical alignment is growing in a positive way, and many people, especially here in Russia, feel, because I'm here in Russia, of course, because of my school, so often feel attracted to it. And when something becomes popular, of course, people step into it and take for instance, the tools and start to copy them. I mean, if you want to wear a copied Rolex coming from a marketplace somewhere in China, feel free to wear one, but it's not my idea of paying respect to the original people who invented that watch. And it happens so often. The most important part, and that's my concern, is safety. Are they safe? Do they have, because we did so much research, does it have the same density? And does it have the same structure, the same shape? Because people don't know, most people don't know how to use the tools properly. And even when they say they are students of mine, I'm not sure if they have the proper understanding and know exactly what they are doing with it. So you better stick to the original tools which come from Holland.
I see. So basically in Moscow you can get them in the institute here?
Yeah, I have a school here, and in which we conduct the 2.0 teachers training. And we, on our site, you can see how to buy the tools. And in Prana Institute, I conduct the teachers training there, and like the therapy training and the additional training on assessments. And they also use our stack and in order to sell it to their students.
I see. Thank you very much for this clarification.
You're welcome.